Basketball fans, the season is upon us. I hope it didn't sneak up on you like it did some others, but the Toronto Raptors are coming up against the Cleveland Cavaliers to open the season. The Cavaliers were a surprise team for a lot around the NBA. Sherm, I'll start with you. 44-38, find themselves in the play-in, and they were kind of the stars of the offseason. A couple big trades, but none bigger, we think, than Donovan Mitchell not going to the New York Knicks and ending up with the Cleveland Cavaliers. What are your expectations for Mr. Mitchell now that he joins the boys out in Cleveland?
Well, obviously, when you bring a player like that and it has that kind of status to a situation that's building in the right way, you know, there's going to be moments where it's going to be an adjustment. It's going to be a phase that they have to go through. It's going to be figuring each other out on the fly. They don't have the reps yet, so they're going to have to figure out where people want the ball, how they like to play. And that, to me, when you're playing with great players, is easier to accomplish. And I think Darius Garland, who has developed into an all-star, who is continuing to trend in the upward position, him as a point guard, he's going to be able to set Donovan Mitchell up, get the offensive flowing so that he gets his opportunity. But remember, there's a young player in Evan Mobley, there's Jarrett Allen who's developing as well, and those two guys are involved offensively as well. And I think Donovan Mitchell is going to be able to utilize those two bigs in many ways because he can attack and get to the basket. He can draw that second defender. Now he can put defenses in compromised situations where the backline has to meet him early because of his athleticism. Those bigs can be around the rim for catch lobs and finishes around the hoop. So I think he's going to be very good for this team. Cleveland, to me, with that situation and that acquisition, has put themselves firmly in discussion to be one of the elite teams in the Eastern Conference very quickly.
Now, picking up on something Sherm said, he talked about finding guys in their spots, putting them in the right positions. Cleveland struggled with ball control, one of the lower teams in terms of, one of the higher teams in terms of turnovers. And then they add Donovan Mitchell, who averaged around 3 turnovers a game. So how do they kind of find that rhythm? Because they'll be playing at probably a pretty high offensive clip, but still secure the ball and give themselves a chance on the offensive end, not to be playing defense all the time.
Turnovers were a problem, Akil. Let's face it. As you said, they were 27th in the NBA in turnovers. Donovan Mitchell's a guy, three turnovers a game. The bad news is, and you kind of take this with a grain of salt because Darius Garland is a guy like that too. He turned the ball over more than Donovan Mitchell last year, and you've got two guys that are going to be handling the ball. Now, as I said, you take that with a grain of salt because home run hitters strike out, shot blockers get dunked on, guys who handle the ball a lot are going to turn it over. So you kind of understand that comes with the territory. But they're going to have to be more responsible with the ball. They're going to have to do a better job of protecting the ball, making sure it gets to the right spots at the right times. The other side of that, Akil, is they were near the bottom in terms of points off turnovers allowed. So not only were they turning the ball over, teams were scoring on them. So got to cut down on those live ball turnovers, do a better job with the ball. And as Sherm said, I think this team has great potential. You know, they've got a young player in Evan Mobley. They add a Donovan Mitchell, this group to grow together. JB Bickerstaff, he would have gotten one of my votes last year for Coach of the Year. So Cleveland is going to be a force to be reckoned with. You got to be a little bit more responsible handling the rock, though.
Well, that's an area of advantage for the Toronto Raptors, who love to get out and run, push the pace, and they're one of the better teams on the fast break. And I will fast break it over to the OVO facility to hear from Nick Nurse post-practice.
Much was made of Pascal's summer workouts, and he was ready to go because he had the first summer in 2 years to prepare. How have you seen that sort of manifest itself through the preseason?
Well, I think he came in probably as sharp as anybody, first of all, just in all facets of it, just with his skills and with his conditioning and all that stuff. You know, and I think he's been pretty impressive at both ends as a two-way player, and still say that's, you know, what he needs to be, who he is. And to me, when he's energized defensively, it always translates to him being energized offensively too. So I think he's probably ready to go, Doug, yeah.
Shooting has always been a thing with him, three-point shooting. He needs to develop. Have you seen development in that at all, or do you agree that he needs to amp it up?
No, I mean, he's certainly worked very hard at it, Doug, and it has continued to develop. I think there's, for me, he's got to continue to take him in the games. I think he's still at the stage where he needs to make that part of his game every night, and some nights you got to live with the results when they aren't quite what you want, but you still got to take the right ones, right? If they're there in their rhythm, he's got to take them, and that's to me where I'd probably be an improvement area for him to just kind of across the board, like each night have a good number of those that he's taking, because he's always going to get his share of them, I think, if he's taking them. So I think that should be a consistent part of him, not like miss a couple then all of a sudden shy away from it. Like he's got to take them. Yeah.
Speaking to guys the last week or two about their individual goals, a lot of guys mentioning all-star or all NBA, all defense. You've always been big on helping guys get to where they want to go, whether that's all-star end-of-season stuff, contractual stuff. How do you balance everybody's understandably ambitious goals with sort of the collective and the sacrifice that it takes to get guys?
Yeah, well, I think that our message from the top down always is those goals are great and fine. First of all, right? I think we understand that we're playing a team sport, but there's individual aspirations for everybody, right? So just fine, right? We accept that. But from the top down, and I just think that everybody realizes that most of those awards, if not all of them, go to teams that are winning, right? So we constantly, when those talks are brought to us, or those kind of goals or whatever, I always say a couple things, right? Like it's going to matter where the team is. But you got to always understand that it's going to matter where the team is. So you've always got to make the right play, right? Play with effort on defense, make the right play. And two, what's the plan, right? What's the plan to, everybody can say anything about, hey, I'd like to do this, right? But quickly you better have a plan to start working towards that thing. So I think that's how we approach it. And I think that's kind of a constant message that we deliver all the time.
I come from Spanish newspaper, so my question is about Juancho at the moment. What do you expect from Juancho this season?
Yeah, I've liked what he brings. Juancho's, I think he's got a really good feel for the game. He does a lot of little things, right? He understands how to play. That's good, right? I think he's a great teammate. We're going to need him. He's in the rotation. He's a guy that can hit from the perimeter, obviously, and we need that spacing from him. And that's really it, man. Just play his game, and his game is, he cuts, he passes, he rebounds, he handles a bit. His primary skill of need for our situation is probably his spacing and his shooting. So he's got to, again, have the confidence to let him rip, man. When he gets them swung around to him, he's got to take them.
Nick, we talked about continuity a bit yesterday, but specifically on the defensive end compared to last season, do you have that confidence that you guys are going to be able to hit the ground running on that end of the floor?
I feel good about it, right? I feel good about the defense. I think that it starts to you learn a lot more when you're going into some games and the opponent starts changing, right? So like the things we have to do tomorrow night are going to be different than the things we're going to have to do this weekend, right? And that's what understanding our defense and executing the game plan and all those kind of things, it's really high on our defensive priority list, right? So, I feel good about where we are. I think they've conceptually grabbed everything. I think they understand what we're doing, right? You don't do a ton of the game plan-ish stuff in the preseason, but we did enough, right, to understand it. So what we find out now, right? We find out now if we can take, first of all, our effort and our energy out there, everybody that hits the floor, and then can they start executing the schemes and the concepts? Yeah.
You just heard from Coach Nick Nurse, whose Raptors team features a super sophomore in Scottie Barnes, the reigning Rookie of the Year. Another super soph who is in consideration. We're talking about Evan Mobley. Jonsey, I'll throw this one to you. Both men very familiar with one another, and they were in that running for the Rookie of the Year. So a little friendly rivalry, would you say, with the familiarity between these two?
Definitely, and it's funny because Evan Mobley had the lead, and I think Scottie really kind of overtook him very, very late in the season to win that Rookie of the Year. And you know what, Akil, as you said, guys know each other. There's a friendly rivalry there, and you have your own expectations, and you have a friend or a guy that you know that you're keeping an eye on that's playing well too, that motivates you and it pushes you. And I think both of these guys are going to be looked at as cornerstones for their teams in terms of years to come. You look at where they were drafted and what they were able to do in their first year. I think you do have a budding rivalry. And I think it's one of those things where I said where a guy's Evan Mobley's going to kind of be keeping his eye on Scottie Barnes, and Scottie's going to keep his eye on Evan Mobley. And when they play against each other and they come up against each other one-on-one or in a game where they're both playing at the same time, guy wants to get the best of his buddy.
You could throw a third guy in there, Jalen Green, as he was in that conversation, definitely, and they're all very familiar with one another. Now let's talk about some of the more potent offensive players between these two. Now GTJ, Gary Trent Jr., a big guy for the Toronto Raptors. They tried to extend and kind of get better from beyond the three-point line. But then you look at Darius Garland, two guys very capable of blowing up on their own with the ball in their hands. Talk about these two players and what they bring to both teams.
Yeah, both interesting offensive players with the way that they operate. You know, Darius Garland is an issue because he's got the quicks, he can shoot the ball from three, he can get by you and get to the basket and finish over the top, and he can also facilitate and find teammates. He took a huge stride last year when you talk about becoming an all-star. He averaged basically 22 and 9 assists per game. So this is a guy who can really, really cause a lot of havoc. I love his consistent growth, his consistent determination of pursuing getting better. He's done a great job of that. And then when you look at Gary Trent Jr., he is now, to me, having his first full situation with the Raptors in terms of being able to be confident and comfortable, understanding the environment, and now going into a season ready to play at the highest level. And he operates a bit differently. He's going to defensively create a lot of havoc, and offensively he's going to score in different ways. But he's not going to use the blazing speed and go by you. He's going to hit you with the shoulder, create a little space, get that one-legged jump shot off or that step-back jump shot. He can knock down the three, can attack the basket. So if those two match up, you're going to see a very, very interesting dynamic. Gary Trent Jr., a defensive guy who's going to have to stop a guy in Darius Garland who creates a lot of problems with his quickness and ball handling. And on the other side, if Garland has to defend Gary Trent Jr., there's a bit of a size advantage that Gary Trent Jr. can take advantage of.
All right, well, the final full practice ahead of the first game, and you know the focus was the Cleveland Cavaliers, so let's head down to practice to see what the conversation was with the players.
Still get amped up for opening night as you would have earlier in your career?
Not as amped up, but just because, you know, you've been doing it for so long, it's just like a regular game, like you're starting a new season, obviously, but I always try to treat it like it's a regular game. Go out there, you know, I know it's going to be a lot of emotions and everything on the, you know, first game, you know, of the season, but at the end of the day, you know, our biggest and ultimate goal is what's on that board over there is win. So that's the only thing that matters.
This is deep as you can remember the East being in a while?
Yes. Yes. I mean, you know, when I first started seeing all the trades going down and guys coming over to the East side, I'm like, yeah, it's going to be a tough one this year. But, I like the challenge. You know, I like that the league is much more competitive, you know, on both sides of the basketball, you know, which is the East and the West. But, you know, this is, you know, as good as it gets as far as basketball. You know, you never know what team is going to be in the top 8 or the top 6. You know, anybody can, you know, prevail at the end. And it's definitely going to go down to the wire. You know, you're going to have a lot of close games, a lot of tough ones. I think this is going to be some of the best basketball we've seen in a long time. We thought, you know, the bubble was some great basketball. You know, now, you know, that the East and the West is super competitive and guys are kind of splitting up. You know, it's going to be a really, really competitive, you know, scene this year on the season and what's going to happen.
You think getting off to a good start will be important for you guys?
It's very important. Yeah. It's very important. Like, usually teams are like, you know, inching into the season. You know, we can't inch in. We have to, you know, make sure we take care of business each and every game. Come, you know, play to win each and every night, making sure that, you know, we're executing and doing the things that, you know, Nick and the rest of the group is putting on the board for us, you know, and just making sure that, you know, overall, you know, we do hit some tough stretches, some tough battles, fight a little bit of adversity that we're able to prevail through and make sure that, you know, we're going in stride and we're just continuing to get better each and every day.
Does the overall tone feel a little bit different this year with this specific group? Because last year a lot of guys were still learning, kind of coming into the system. You guys being on the same page of what you're trying to accomplish this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think guys know exactly what we can do. You know, last year was just the spark to the fire, and, you know, this year we're just ready to just get out there and just make sure that, you know, we piggyback off what we did last year and just continue to improve and get better. The starters are going to be great for us, but the bench unit has to be even better, than we were last year coming off, and making sure that we're holding leads or gaining more leads and making sure that we're just doing the things that we need to do, because that's going to be a vital piece for every single team in the East now. Obviously, like, the starters have gotten better, across the board in the East, but it's the bench units that's going to have to be able to dictate some games, and I think we have the quality caliber guys that can do it.
You mentioned one of your goals for this season was to make an all-defensive team. What do you think you need to do to get to that level?
Just really bring it every single game. Can't really take a game off, Just got to make that presence when I step on the floor every single game to just really lock in and try to do those little things and just try to help our team win. I feel like our team success is going to help with that. So just trying to do those little things, get block shots, really just try to lock down defenders, get steals, do those little things to really lock in every single game.
Have you found anything kind of easier now in your second year, having been through this all for 12 months?
Do I find anything easier, you said?
What about the game or the role or the job seems a little simpler than it did 12 months ago?
I don't really know. To say I'm more prepared. I know the plays more. I can talk more on the floor. Feels a lot better, I guess. That's all I can say right now.
Brad was just talking about the first 10, 20 games establishing your identity as a team. Do you know yet what the identity is, or do you need to play a few games to know what you guys are or what you want to be?
I feel like things start with us on the defensive end. We really try to focus on that main area. We got a lot of freedom on offense to do what we can do. We have so many players that can do so many different things. So we got a lot of freedom on offense, so we just really try to focus on defense. We know that starts the first thing, deflections, getting out in transition, being able to protect the rim, switching things, sometimes in coverage. So I feel like we know what we do. Defensive is our identity.
Number one home crowd in the league. And the Raptors kind of have a good reputation here in Toronto. And the GMs voted this is the best home crowd in the league. So talk to me, Sherm, about how important starting a season and having this advantage is in your back pocket, knowing the pressure's on.
Well, I think the advantage is what you make it. I mean, the Raptors have taken advantage of being at home, and that's something that, there's a train of thought out there with younger teams. You want them to start on the road, less pressure in the house. But I think when you talk about the Raptors and a veteran group who understand what this crowd means and how this city supports them, it's really good to play at home. You get that energy, you get that good vibe, that feeling, because they're on the road right after that. So to get that one under your belt at home against a good team would be very, very good moving forward into a very tough 2-game stretch on the road. So I just think that for a veteran group like the Raptors, the leadership they have, understanding who they are in this process, being at home is great. And remember, we've always known that this has been a great home court advantage. Now that the GMs are saying it, it's not news to me. It is what it is. It's always been a great home court advantage. They knew about Jurassic Park, but inside the building, it's a different vibe, and it's good to see them actually acknowledge it. And let's not forget, this is the only team in the country. So you're getting support from all over the country. So when they travel to come here in this building, there's an added energy to watching this team.
Best atmosphere in the league, no questions asked. Now let's talk about something that you have to ask questions about, and of course that's the shooting from distance for the Toronto Raptors, especially when you go up against one of the number one rim protection teams in the league, and that kind of puts some pressure on your offense. Raptors are number 6 in mid-range, but how do the Raptors address that, knowing that the looks inside aren't going to be as easy with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen inside?
Well, first of all, Akil, as you said, got to make some shots, but there are other ways. I mean, you think about that stat, the number one team protecting the rim. That means there's guys back there and they're waiting. And oftentimes that happens in a situation where you've got a 5-on-5 or half-court situation. Even when there's a breakdown, you got Mobley and Allen back there to protect. So if you're Toronto, you want to maybe take advantage of an issue that presented Cleveland with problems last year. Turn them over. They give up points off the turnover. Get down there and score before that defense can set up. And then on the other side of it, sure, move people, move bodies, and knock down shots from the outside. But, you are going to get to the rim. You're just going to have to do it when those guys aren't back there, and there's a way to orchestrate that and not always having to depend on, the same breakdown of your half-court offense and take it into the shot blockers. Got to make some shots from the outside, got to turn them over, got to run the floor, got to get some easy ones before those guys get set back there.
The fast break will be paramount for this Toronto Raptors team. Sorry, gentlemen, it's time to put you guys on the spot. It's the unfair art of prognostication. And Jonsey, I'm going to put you on the spot right now and ask you, what is the final score going to be, and who is going to be your top scorer, aka MVP, for this matchup?
Well, look at the betting line. Those people kind of always have an idea. Right now, Toronto's a 3-point favorite, and Sherm talked about it. We know what this building is like. As Nick Nurse likes to say, there's going to be a little bit of juice in the building on Wednesday night when this game starts. I'm going to go with the home team. I say Toronto wins this by 3-5. I hearken back to something that Sherm also mentioned earlier in our show, where Cleveland's going to be figuring it out. If it's a close game, they may not have everything consolidated for the end of the game, who gets the ball, where, when, just the timing. So I'm giving Toronto a bit of an advantage there. I say a 3 to 5 point win for the Raptors, and I think one of your best players is going to show up. So I'm looking for either Fred or Pascal to be in the mix leading Toronto to this victory.
Okay, you picked two guys. That's fair. I'll leave you with
Pascal.
that. Pascal.
If you want one, Pascal.
Okay, all right. That leaves some options for you, Sherm. Your take on the game.
I'm simple. I'm going to say it's going to be a 10-plus point win for the Raptors.
Okay.
And I'm going to say that the player in this game that's going to show out is going to be Scottie Barnes. We talked about it. You heard Jonsey talk about, him and Evan Mobley and that kind of dynamic that they have. I think Scottie's going to come out and make a statement first game of the season and show that he is going to continue to be that guy for the Raptors. And I like the energy that he's going to feed off of in this building. So I say the Raptors by at least 10 in this game. And I say that Scottie Barnes, he's going to be the game MVP.
Okay, I like it. I got Raptors on my parlay, so let's see what happens Wednesday night.
Who's the other one on the parlay?
Okay. I'm not letting out my secrets yet. You can follow me on Instagram to find out exactly what Akil's doing. But you can find out whether the Raptors win or lose Wednesday night on TSN. That's where the game will be. The broadcast starts at 7. The game tips at 7:30. And, of course, the radio call also on the TSN radio network. That does it for Sherm, Jonsey, and myself, Akil Augustine. Thank you guys for tuning in. This has been the final preseason, it is a preseason Raptors today. And then the next time we see you, the games will have counted.